Hello viewers, welcome to Top Notch Online TV. With you today is teacher Emis Njabani from Alliance Girls High School, a teacher of English, an author and an examiner. With me today is our lovely teacher Rispa. Teacher Rispa, please say hello to the learners.
Hello learners, I'm teacher Rispa, a teacher at PCA Kikuyu High School. I teach English and literature. I'm an examiner as well as an author.
Okay, today learners, we are going to look at our sixth short story. The Sins of Our Fathers by Charles Mungoshi, who is an author of the Zimbabwe origin. So during this session, we are going to look at plot analysis, or how the events follow each other in this story, as well as the main issues that are discussed or that emerge in this story. So to start us is our lovely teacher Rispa telling us how the plot is developed in this story. Welcome.
Thank you. Sins of the Fathers is a story that emanates from Zimbabwe by a writer called Charles Mungoshi. When you're looking at the setting of the story, we're even seeing them listening to Oliver Mutsukuti's song, therefore, a story from Zimbabwe. What is the relevance of the title? Why is the story called Sins of the Fathers? I want us to, before we can go even to the plot summary, we understand the relevance of the title, and therefore we'll be able to connect it to the events that are happening in the book. When you're talking about the sins of the father, we are looking at the mistakes that people before us have done, and then because of their mistakes, we are paying for them. For instance, we are looking at the sins of Rondo's father. The way Rondo has always been treating, the way Mr. Wafa has always been treating Rondo, and because of that, Rondo develops a self-doubt in himself. Still on the sins of the father, we are looking at colonialism, the way the European people were colonizing Zimbabwe, and then later on you see some sects of people, the Chimurenga youth, they are still bitter towards the white people. Still on the sins of the fathers, we are looking at Selina's father who had offended Mr. Wafa, and because of that, it was payable in his grandchildren when they were caused to have an accident. I think you have an idea of sins of the fathers. What have the people before us done, and how has it impacted the generations after that? The story is about the main character. We are calling him Rondo. Rondo is the son of Mr. Wafa. Mr. Wafa, a former minister of internal security. That was the work of Mr. Wafa. Let's call the first episode Rondos Morning. As the story unfolds, the story is centered around mourning that is taking place. Rondo has just lost his 2 children as well as his father-in-law. Imagine losing 2 children at a go in a supposed accident. And because of that, Rondo is in mourning to an extent that he is sitting at a particular sofa and he has never left the sofa. We also seeing him that around him is his father, Mr. Wafa, and there is a fire that has been lit. The fire has been kept going for the past 1 week. Therefore, we are at a period of mourning. When they're mourning, what are some of the events that are memorable of that episode? We are being told some people came to this event to help them in mourning for their various reasons. Others just out of good neighborliness. A neighbor has lost children, therefore I'm mourning with my neighbor. Others had come as a means to an end. They want to associate with former minister, Mr. Wafa, because they know that, you can see from the way they're targeting at the cameras. Where the cameras are, these people are targeting. These pictures will be seen by people and they will open doors for them. So some people even over here to advance their interests. And then there's still something about Rondo when he is mourning. He realizes that his father had moved from one place to another without his knowledge. And now he is now realizing that he is not in the best of state. Things are even happening without even his feeling. We go to another episode that we're about to call Rondo and his relations. Rondo and relationships. We are going to look at a number of people. How does Rondo relate with a number of people? And when he's relating with these people, there's something else that will come forth, that Rondo has developed a kind of self-doubt kind of a personality. He has a low self-esteem in himself. Now, where does that self-esteem issue emanate from? We need to look at the relationship he has with people. I'll start with mentioning his mother. When I'm looking at Rondo and the relationship with his mother, he feels that it was only his mother who had genuine love for him. Another person that Rondo relates with, I'll look at his wife Selena. Rondo and Selena have been married and they have together 2 children. But from time to time, Rondo is doubtful about the kind of relationship he has with his wife, as much as they love one another. He has always felt that his wife has a superiority complex towards him. His wife has always told Rondo that Rondo is living in the shadows of Mr. Wafa. He is not his own person. He has been living in the shadows of Mr. Wafa, and he has an excess fear for his own father. The wife even goes ahead and says, I could have done better in your pants. Yeah. The wife emasculates Rondo. It's like she tries to show him, you're not really a man. You could have done better in your pants. That's the kind of relationship Rondo has with his wife. But still, so that we don't demonize this relationship, there's still the aspect of love and care. Now that they've lost their children, the wife has realized Rondo rarely has some sleep. She goes ahead and tells him, I'll make for you some food. Please try and get some sleep. I would not want to lose you as well. The wife cares about Rondo. I'm still looking at the episode of Rondo and the relationships that he has in his life. There's still the relationship that Rondo has with his colleagues. About his colleagues, we are learning that at the workplace, they never really viewed Rondo as a good journalist, but he had been fixed over there by some person that has influence. Therefore, they have no option but to live along with it, to accommodate Rondo. And as they are accommodating Rondo, they are also using him. We are looking at some instances when they need something in their life. They drop in Rondo's name and that thing is done. They're also asking some advance money from Rondo whenever they need. So at the workplace, he's being used by people to advance their wishes, namely advances, and also by the mention of his name, being the son of an ex-minister, they get to have their way. At the workplace, you're still seeing Rondo is the butt of jokes. People are always making fun of him. And according to him, he says, if you see me as a fool, I'll be one. Therefore, he also engages with those people. The way they're treating him, he doesn't complain about it. He just lives he tries to live according to the way they see him. Rondo and relationships. I want to also capture the relationship with the father. The relationship with the father has always been a domineering one. The father is domineering over Rondo. Mr. Rofa is domineering over Rondo. And because of that, Rondo has developed some kind of fear for the father to an extent that at times when the father questions him about something, he cannot really give a straight answer. He ends up stammering out of fear. But the writer is very particular. He still says Rondo had a great admiration for Mr. Wafa, his father. His father was up there with the likes of Superman and also Spider-Man. Yeah, the superheroes. He looks at his father, he sees a superhero. Let's go to incident number 3. Incident number 3, we shall call it Incident number 3, let's call it incident with the white woman. We're talking about a certain time, Selena, out of her wisdom, decided that our 2 families have never been together in an event. Therefore, why don't you hold a birthday party? During that birthday party, we can invite relatives from both sides. And Mr. Mzamane, who is Selena's father, had arrived at the Rondos household. And as he was there, we also see that Mr. Wafa comes along, and these people have always been known that they had a political rivalry. Both of them are politicians. Mr. Mzamane, who is Selena's father, is also an MP. But when Mr. Wafa looks at him, he sees him as a mere MP. He looks at him with some kind of a superiority complex. Now there's that before the party, the same one I'm calling incident with the white woman. Mr. Ruafa had asked Mr. Mzamane, have you ever witnessed dark shooting? And after that, they had taken off together Rondo, Mr. Ruafa, as well as Mr. Mzamane to a certain farm in a place called, I think, Ruan. I'll remember the name a bit. They had taken to watch some dark shooting. And it was not strange to Rondo because Rondo has been to this place with his father and even with Selina. And he knew that there was a couple by the name of Mr. and Mrs. Quayle, and they had, from what Rondo could have witnessed, they looked like they had a cordial kind of relationship with Mr. and Mrs. Quayle. They were white settlers. Not that particular day, as they had said, they were going for dark shooting. It happened that as they were advancing with their vehicle, another group of youth that are wielding knob carries, they're wielding clubs, they look like they're ready to attack. They are following Mr. Rondo closely. Yeah. At first, Mr. Mzamane had thought they were the target, only to realize that these people, whenever they stopped, these people also stopped. So they were not, and he realizes they were not the target, but in fact, they were offering some kind of protection. These people, we are going to call them the Chimurenga youth. They suddenly got to a place. A white woman, her vehicle had stopped suddenly. And this woman, her vehicle had stopped suddenly. This woman needed some kind of help. Yeah. Now, as they were alighting from their vehicle to go and see what kind of help can you accord this woman, Mr. Ruafa just disappears conveniently out of sight. And this youth, this weapon-wielding youth, they are coming for the white woman. Upon close scrutiny, Rondo realizes this is Mrs. Quayle, one among their friends. And Rondo now is lost for words. You know that he's someone who is always second-guessing himself. He's never assured of his actions. Therefore, he just goes, mum. He doesn't speak any word. And it is left to Mr. Mzamane. Mr. Mzamane speaks to the youths and tells them that whatever we are planning for today won't happen today. We have postponed. I'm speaking on behalf of my friend. We are together in this. In other words, by authority, and he's not telling the truth, but what he's trying to say is, by the authority given to him by Mr. Ruafa, they're not going to execute the killing of that white woman. After that, the life of the white woman has been spared, and the white woman, we see her inviting Mr. Mzamane and Rondo for tea at her farm. My farm is not far away. We can go for some tea. But then Mr. Mzamane declines, and he says there's always next time. We are realizing that Mr. Ruafa conveniently disappearing, he had set up that woman for being killed by the youth. He was interested in her farm, so that he was interested in taking over her farm, but first of all, the woman had to die. We are looking at another incident. Before we go to the fourth incident about incident at the party, we're still at the incident number 3. We are looking at incident before the party, or the incident with the white woman. That is the third incident. Rondo had confronted the father. After the youth had been quelled, they went away. Once they had gone away, Mr. Ruafa suddenly reappears.
Yeah,
from the bush. And Rondo is confused. He's now confirming with the father. Is that Mrs. Quayle? And the father rebuffs. The father retorts. The father retorts by asking him, is she your mother? In other words, he's trying to tell Rondo, you're not supposed to be concerned about whatever happens to Mrs. Quayle. Later on, they move ahead. They go to the party. At the party, now incident number 4, episode number 4. Episode number 4, let me call it incident at the party. At the party, what happens? First of all, there looks like some subtle kind of conflict between Mr. Mzamane and Mr. Ruafa. Later on, a reporter goes to Mr. Ruafa and he asks Mr. Ruafa, what have you been doing in the liberation? What have you been doing in the liberation struggle? And Mr. Ruafa, it has already been suggested that this man had some hand in 2nd Street killings. Whenever an enemy had to be expelled, he was the one given that job. Now they wanted to know, in this liberation struggle, what was your work? And after that question from the reporter, we see that also Mr. Mzamane starts to keep himself busy. From the interpretation, Mr. Mzamane had set him up for that. He wanted him to answer on that question. He wanted to bring to the people's attention the nature of Mr. Ruafa's work. Instead of Mr. Ruafa really answering, he loses his cool. What does he do? He goes ahead and he expresses contempt towards children snatchers, cattle thieves, name it, all examples of lowlifes that he feels are their enemies. He goes ahead and calls his son effeminate son, unmasculine. The meaning of that is unmasculine, who marries from their enemies. And after that, we see that he leaves in a huff. He leaves that party. And people are now, the mother, Mrs. Ruafa, the mother of Rondo, is concerned. Where is my husband? Has someone seen my husband? Later on, they realize the absence of that man should have been a concern to them, yet they did not pay a lot of attention. Then comes Mr. Mzamane. Mzamane says, I've not spent a lot of time with my grandchildren. Why don't you do this? Why don't you give me an opportunity I spend with my grandchildren? He is given that opportunity, and he takes the two daughters for a ride. Later on, the daughters have an accident, and we see the loss of life of Mr. Mzamane, as well as his two granddaughters, the daughter of Rondo, as well as the daughters of Rondo and Selena's. That becomes the end of their daughter. Therefore, when you go back to the beginning, we are now understanding why was Rondo mourning. And as he was mourning, I'm now going back to that episode and I'm about to tie it up. We're now getting to learn why was Rondo mourning. Rondo was mourning the loss of his daughters, but you see the father is consoling him. The father is telling him, you will thank me later for having done it sooner other than later. At the same time, the father is telling him that you can always sire more children in future. It's like not the end of life. He does not take it with the kind of seriousness, with the kind of grief that should be accorded to such an incident. We later see that Gaston is one among the people who works at the newspaper farm. He works alongside Rondo. He's among the journalists. Before they publish a story, he considers a friend. This story involves one of ours. Therefore, let me give him an insight before the story is published. He gives him a newspaper clipping. Rondo takes the newspaper clipping and he now wants to confront the father. Have you always been having something to do with the Second Street accidents? The Second Street accidents were not actually accidents, but they were assassinations. And the father, still contemptuous of Rondo, he tells Rondo, is it one among your colleagues, your brighter? He talks about your more intelligent colleagues that you had him write it for you. In other words, he's telling Rondo, you can't be this smart. It has to be a push from someone. Then the father realizes that Rondo is holding a gun. Rondo has come to execute a homicide. He wants to take his father's life. But no, Rondo, being naive, he is pointing at the butt of the gun to his father and the trigger towards himself. It's like when he pulls that trigger, it would have shot himself instead of shooting the person he had come for. And the father now decides to end this all. The father asks him, leave the room. And as Rondo wants to leave the room, at the door is also his wife, Selena. Selena is also wielding a gun. And Selena has been given a gun by Rondo's mother, Mrs. Ruafa. She was also for the idea that they need to execute Mr. Ruafa. Mr. Ruafa takes out a gun, his own service gun, and he ends. What they could just hear as the story is ending is an explosion of a gun. Before he had killed himself, he had told Rondo, I thought you had guts. In other words, the son cannot even kill him. Even the guts to kill him, the son does not have. And now he decides to end his own life. That is it about the sins of the fathers.
Thank you so much, Teacher Rispa, for that explanation of the story, the sins of our fathers. So I'm going to look at the main issues that emerge in this story. And the first one is parental resentment. Parental resentment is whereby a parent does not, instead of supporting, encouraging, motivating their children, in simple, what they do, it's like they bring their children down. They do the opposite. They discourage. They see their children as a low life. They mess with their self-esteem and so on. So Ruafa openly resented his son Rondo and always brought him down. First of all, we look at the flashback. In his flashback, Rondo remembers when he was 4 years old. When he was 4 years old, he was given a guitar, by his uncle. So his father came back from work and he found a 4-year-old boy just playing tunelessly with the guitar. He takes the guitar, destroys it, and throws in the fire, and says that his son cannot be like the musicians who are known to be irresponsible in life. That hurt the little boy so much. Even at his age now as an adult, he still remembers it. He even shared the incident with his wife. The second one, Rafa resented Rondo for marrying Devele. According to him, since Selena came from a family he considered his arch nemesis, then he hated the Rondo for that actually. Then also it to hard like fire to it when Rondo and his wife had their first child. It happened to be her girl. He was expecting actually a boy so that boy can inherit his wealth and inherit his charisma. But the fact that they had 2 girls actually made him resent Rondo and his wife more. The third instance of parental resentment comes from where Mrs. Rafa actually noticed that her husband gave Rondo ill treatment. That is page 31. He says, Mrs. Rafa had very deep fears about the future of her only child. She knows that Rafa is very selfish, and Rafa will always put himself before his son. So she knew that her son's future was not like promising, considering how Rafa treated him. Rafa also is seen on page 32 as someone who constantly insulted Rondo. We are told he calls him a slob. So on that day after, I think he helped to procure a job for him. On that day, he goes and says, "Slob, wake up. It's time for you to earn your keep. It's time for you to earn your keep here." So that part. And then after that, we are told none of the words he used to address Rondo had any respect in them. So he constantly used words that were meant to bring down Rondo and disrespect him. During now the wedding time, Mrs. Rafa would talk to Rafa about the wedding, and he would contemptuously ask, "Who is doing the wedding? Who did you say is wedding?" Page 34. Who did you say is wedding? So he looked at, he resented Rondo for marrying from his enemies. He did not even show up for the wedding. He did not even support the wedding financially. During the wedding time, he conveniently disappeared and said that he was away for like 2 weeks business because he did not want to attend the wedding. Okay, another one is during the wedding, the birthday party for Rondo's 2 girls or daughters. He made a very hateful speech condemning his son for poisoning the poor blood of the Rafa clan by marrying into the family of their enemies. Actually, that is the exact word that he says, that his son is poisoning the pure blood of the Rafa family because he married into the family of his enemies. Sorry, that's our first theme. We also have another theme, identity crisis. Rondo suffers from identity crisis. He keeps on self-guessing himself. He is not sure if what he's doing is the right thing. He is not sure if what he's saying is the right thing because of the treatment that he has gone through in the hands of his own father. So he does not believe in himself. He does not even know who he is. For instance, Rondo does not believe in himself and is always walked in the shadow of his father. So his wife, Selena, tells him, "You are always in the shadow of your father." His wife, Selena, told him. At some point, she also said that she can do better in Rondo's pants than Rondo does. So it's like she's telling Rondo, "Be yourself. Who are you? Are you Rondo? or are you Rafa? Because you are always in the shadows of your father. Be yourself. The second point, Rondo did not know where to rate himself and believed is what people said he was. Page 28, with his colleagues, they used to mock him, they used to laugh about him, and every time they would laugh about him, he was actually the laughing stock. He would join in the laughter. He would join the laughter, and then he would say, well, if you see me as a fool, I will be one. So sometimes he didn't know if they were laughing about him, and if he knew, just join the laughter. What can he do? Page 29, he also told he has no idea the direction to take in his life. He says his wife made all decisions for him and gave him direction. It's like he couldn't even in their marriage, he didn't have a direction. He was given direction by his wife, because it's like now in marriage, it's the wife who is stronger as compared to Rondo. Page 33, his colleague Gaston tells him, you can't be a child forever, Rondo. It means he needs to act and think like an adult. So Rondo does not actually realize that he's now an adult, meant to make sound decisions and not rely on what others plan for him. There is the third theme of suffering. Suffering is brought out at the beginning of the story. We see Rondo suffering a lot after the death of his two daughters, as well as his father-in-law, Mr. Mzamane. Suffering is also, that is page 27. He was trying to erase the pain. So in the process of trying to erase the pain, he kept on imagining that his children died a happy death, singing and listening to the songs that their grandfather was singing to them. The fourth theme is the theme of betrayal. Rondo betrays his father by marrying from the enemy community. His wife Selina is the daughter of Rafa's political enemy, Mr. Mzamane. So that's a betrayal. Rafa also betrays Rondo and his own granddaughters, because it's insinuated that he's the one behind the second, it's called second what? Accidents. Second-rate accidents, something like that. So those accidents that are orchestrated by someone. It's not a real accident, but someone is behind the accident. So it is believed that he was the one, because on page 28, he tells Rondo, you will remember me and you will thank me that I did this now and not later. Rafa also betrays his son when he refuses to support him and attend his wedding, and in place he said that he had a conference to attend. After betrayal comes revenge. So the next theme is the theme of revenge or vengeance. Mr. Rafa is an unforgiving man. Page 31, his wife says, his deepest scar is that he cannot forgive. That is Mr. Rafa. His deepest scar is that he cannot forgive. Not just his enemies. You, me, everyone. Rafa cannot forgive. If he has a grudge with you, then he's going to avenge. And we clearly see that when it comes to Mr. Mzamane, because clearly they are not friends. He refers to, or he sees him as his great enemy. Sorry for that. At the beginning of the story, Rondo goes to his father with a gun. Since after reading the article about the Second Street accidents, he realizes that the kind of job his father does. He realizes that his father probably is the one behind the death of his children and the death of his father-in-law. So he goes to his father holding a gun with the thought of taking his life to avenge the death of his children and the death of his father-in-law. Although we are told he was very naive, instead of pointing the gun at his father, he points it at himself. The last theme that I'm going to look at is the theme of racism. Racism is brought out by Mr. Rafa, who wants to forcibly take the land belonging to the white farmer, Mr. Quayle. He had hired goons. Those goons that were following him, they were meant to go help him with the attack. Okay, Mzamane's story also about a white settler in Mahinze who sent away the blacks who lived there and took their ancestral land is another evidence of racism. We also have other themes like the theme of power, how someone like Mr. Rafa was a very powerful person in the society, and through him, people got their doors opened. On page 27, we are told some mourners just came to have a picture with Mr. Rafa. The photos would open doors in the future. We also told Rondo knew his father was somewhere high up there. His job was sensitive, and he says his father was like Batman and Superman. So it was Batman and Superman as people who are superheroes. So according to him, his father had or possessed a lot of powers. This short story is a little bit lengthy, our learners, and so we have quite a number of themes, whether major or whether minor. So what we have mentioned is just but a few. There are other themes that are going to come up or crop once you start to deeply analyze the story. So your task to you is go to the story and find out if there are other minor themes that you can come up with. Of course, a theme must be illustrated. There must be a very clear illustration or an example to support that theme. So we mark the end of our session now, and do not forget, go press that subscribe button. Our channel is Top Notch Online TV. Also, we have a very good book, Top Notch English Guru. Get a copy and get to learn about everything that is in the English syllabus, starting from Form 1 up to Form 4. From us is a goodbye.